every single rule of war was violated from the first hours of the invasion by Russian troops. So they willfully killed hundreds and hundreds of civilians. They knew it was civilians, they saw it was civilians. Despite that, they killed them willfully. They shelled densely populated areas with free-falling aerial bombs with mass up to 500 kilograms. This kind of bomb also can't distinguish between military target and civilian. It just destructs everything, and this is a clear violation of the principle of the proportionality. Even if there was a military object in some settlement, the commander should have picked this type of weapon that allowed him to target military object, but not demolish the whole city or the whole settlement, which is also like quite often picture we see in Mariupol, in Irpin, in Bucha, in Borodyanka, for example. It was absolutely stunning because that was clear attack on the civilians, because there were absolutely no military targets there, or even objects of the like dual purpose objects, because some objects like bridges, like electrical facilities, can be during the conflict can become a legal target. So you are allowed to target this kind of dual purpose objects. Nevertheless, Russians dropped many bombs on Borodyanka, destroyed the whole city out of blue without any military necessity, just because they could, and just because the aim of this war or military operation, how they call it, is not to gain military advantage, but to just eliminate the whole Ukrainians, which is absolutely clear from this pattern was recorded by us in many settlements we already visited, and we can see it also from the reports we obtaining and verifying that it's a deliberate strategy, and it was ordered to just eliminate everyone, despite the fact it was like children, women, men, doesn't matter. So we have several directions of our job. One is the constant monitoring of what's been going on during the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, picking incidents which looks to us like those that happened with violation of the international humanitarian law, which can constitute war crimes. Then we send field missions to that area to try to collect valuable testimonies and evidence from the ground, and also we do the investigative work. By now we looking into investigation of several incidents, trying to establish linkage between the incident and the direct perpetrator, but this could be done only after the field documentation work. So we already spent 8 days documenting in Chernihiv and Kyiv, Chernihiv and Kyiv region. We have sent 3 separate teams to the settlements, picking evidence and trying to put together evidence to figure out which case would we pick from what is known to us and from what we know is being done by Ukrainian official investigative bodies, that they cover pretty much cases, and they put like huge resources into these cases of mass murder in Bucha, in Hostomel, in Irpin, in other countries, in other settlements. But crimes in smaller settlements are being underreported, and we're looking to to pick some cases from, for example, the village Novy Bykiv in Chernihiv region. There have been a cellar where Russians have been held 22 civilian prisoners, and at the day of the withdrawal they have executed 4 of them, and we've got contacts of those who have been held, and we have interviewed a couple of people, but we need to gather more evidence about the direct perpetrators. And also, speaking about Kyiv region, I think we would take into the investigation case of indiscriminate shelling with multiple launch rocket system Grad perpetrated by the Russian. So they shelled the civilian housing and burned to ashes several Ukrainian huts just out of blue, with no military necessity and with no military purpose to do this. And maybe also the third case about the death of 13 people in Chernihiv in the beginning of March after the cluster munition shelling of the center of the city, which is also like obvious violation of the rules of war of the international humanitarian law, because it is strictly prohibited to target densely populated areas with the cluster munitions, because it is a weapon of it doesn't distinguish between civilian and civilian places and the military targets. So it's prohibited, and Russians still did it. War crime is a grave violations of the international humanitarian law, which is basically the rules how two warring parties should fight each other, should kill each other's soldiers, and to protect civilians and other protected persons and objects, like prisoners of war, like educational facilities of belief, of culture, and also all the civilians, and so on and so on and so on. And if warring party gravely violates these rules, it becomes an international crime, which can be prosecuted any time from the day it was committed till the death of the perpetrator. And they are such actions like willful killings of protected persons, like civilians or POWs, prisoners of war, indiscriminate attack on civilians and civilian infrastructure with weapon of indiscriminate nature, which doesn't distinguish between military targets and civilian objects. Violation the principle of proportionality, because even if you are launching attack at the military target, you have to assess the damage you will cause to civilians and assess this and pick this type of weapon that would allow you to target the civilian object, and that the casualties among civilians won't be too high. When you see the signs of crime, you start the investigation. You interrogating witnesses, you doing the forensic on the crime scene, you picking physical evidence, you talking to many people, you open the internet and try to link the incident and the victims in this incident to direct perpetrator who pulled the trigger literally, or who ordered this perpetrator to launch the attack, or to shoot the civilian, to torture someone, to rape someone. And it's like you need to collect proofs till the level beyond the reasonable doubts to bring this case to the court. For example, the military object was like 500 meters from the place they have shelled, and I've got these remnants of the cluster munitions that were used, and I got these photos taken at this very spot showing the shrapnel traces of the cluster exploded. And I know the list of victims among civilians, and also I know the exact date, and also I know the direction from where the shells come from. And I know that this brigade was in an operation in this area, and the commander of this brigade, according to these documents, is this person. So he's responsible for launching this indiscriminate attack that resulted in deaths of like dozens of civilians. And I accuse this person into committing war crime. And then like court will make the decision. It can be any court. It can be a court in Ukraine. It can be the International Criminal Court. The prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, Mr. Karim Khan, visited Ukraine, and he also said that like it was clearly war crimes committed by Russians in Bucha. So the prosecutor told that there are like no doubts. He has no doubts it was a crime, and then the task for the investigators of the ICC to build this linkage between the dead bodies shot into their heads to those who did that, to bring them to justice. And also courts in many countries, actually in any country, in Bulgaria can open the criminal proceeding on the war crime case committed on the Ukrainian soil against Ukrainian citizens by Russians, so basically this incident has no connection to Bulgaria, but as it's an international crime, any country in the world can investigate and prosecute for committing the crime. So we're following all these three directions. So we work with national law enforcement and prosecutors. We work with the ICC, supporting them and providing them information about the witnesses and possible in cases we discovered, and also we trying to build cases and plant into the different jurisdictions. So there is already Germany, France, Switzerland, Norway, and the US in our scope, and we would really like to expand it and include Bulgaria to join investigating these international crimes. One of my fellow colleagues is involved into the providing some humanitarian support to the medical facilities in Kyiv region here. And the doctors from this facility approached her and asked if she can find somewhere these pills to terminate pregnancy. Because the victims of the rape, some of them became pregnant, and they requested 5,000 pills only for the Kyiv region. So, and no, it's not all victims got pregnant, not all victims unfortunately survived, but still they assessed that they would need about 5,000 pills to terminate this brutal, like these pregnancies that women gained after these brutal acts. Sometimes it can take hours to see the linkage between the perpetrator and the incident. And the letter was to find evidence that would allow you to present the case before the court. So absolutely, the new technologies and the big data, the spread of social media, very much helping investigators, including us, to find these criminals. Me personally, I expect the first cases would go to the court, would go to the prosecutors in weeks and would go to the court in months. I mean, like 6, 7, 8 months. But of course, you can be lucky enough to find the witnesses which will bear the strong evidence that will allow you to connect and to identify the person. During these 8 years of our work, we have identified 40 suspects for committing the war crimes. But of course, we as a field documenters, we would be happy to collect evidence here in Ukraine, so the investigator can stay in his home country and stay at his office doing the actual investigation. We can collect evidence and we can communicate and provide anything the investigator would request from us. We are truth hounds, and we realize that as we are Ukrainians, we can look at these things on some different direction. There's no our criminals and they criminals. It's just criminals. The criminals have to be punished, despite the fact whose they are. You know this phrase that he might be son of a bitch, but he's our son of a bitch. And we use the reverse version of this saying, like he might be our son of a bitch, but he's still son of a bitch, and we will pick and get information against him, against them. And we've got this pool of investigated criminals, also Ukrainian fighters, Ukrainian soldiers and fighters who fought on the Ukrainian side, like for Ukraine. But while fighting, they perpetrated the war crime.